Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I like to discuss the way that the Brexit government may be slowly learning that the reality of international trade negotiations is that they are neither quick nor easy, and how in their stubbornness to refuse to accept reality they're actually going to make the process even more difficult and time consuming. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So we were promised oodles of new brilliant trade deals the day after we left the EU. So how many do we have? Well, ask a Brexit supporter and they think we have dozens. We actually have two. Rounded off, it's really 1.5. The rest are all copy-pasted from the EU agreements. And recently Liz Truss, who is the cabinet minister in charge of obtaining these trade agreements, has been complaining that the process is slow. Glacially slow. Now, Liz Truss is not actually a Brexit believer. She, like many Conservative MPs, became one for advancement, when Brexit took over the party. She campaigned to remain. Not to say that she was a committed Europhile, but she was well aware that our trading hand would be significantly weaker outside the EU and said as much on numerous occasions. So given that she is now acting out of selfish career aspirations, I get that she will claim she has struck dozens of trade deals. It's what you do in politics. I get that she will say how marvellous they are now that we've taken back control. What I don't get is why she seems to believe it. Because it does sound like she does believe it. I've been reading some accounts from the Australian media on the attempts to get a good trade deal with Australia by making Dan Tehan, who's their Minister for Trade, by putting him in an uncomfortable chair. Ah yes, the age-old tactic of getting what you want on the world stage by putting guests in the uncomfortable chair. Needless to say that this was regarded as insulting by Australian media, and Liz Truss has had to engage in a little bit of diplomacy to smooth over the row. Who'd have guessed that such a tactic, which is both moronic and offensive in equal measure, would cause such a problem? Now, the problem here is that we now have a government which is basically run by politicians. Yes, I know you're saying it's a democracy, Phil, that's how governments are supposed to be run. Technically, they're supposed to be run by politicians in the sense that they decide policy. But the problem is that they are also determining the process. Now, this is an absolute disaster, because what is supposed to happen is a senior politician says, in a functioning democracy, I want to go to the moon. So experts in the civil service then work out, how you can do this. They consult with experts in aerospace engineering. A plan is drawn up. They get the politician to organise the funding. Actually, they don't even do that. God, man, could you imagine? They organise the funding and they get the politician to authorise it. And then a few years later, you're on the moon. But we got rid of all the competent civil servants and we no longer listen to the experts, who are dismissed as doom mongers and naysayers. These politicians that we have now surround themselves with yes men for officials. So now what happens is Brexit politician says, I want to go to the moon, and their official toady-in-chief says, I'll go and get a really big ladder. Government ministers used to have most of their blushes spared by being kept informed by senior officials. Now they are made to look like fools on a daily basis, internationally. They only get away with it nationally because the media here helpfully distract us from these brainless misgivings. Why on earth does Liz Truss think that progress on an Australian trade deal is slow when she hasn't even been trying for more than a few months? Free trade agreements take years to negotiate, and that's when both sides know what they're doing. People have been saying this for years. This is because both sides start with their own proposals. This is what we want. The other side says, well, this is what we want. There's some overlap, but they're poles apart. And then you spend a good long time moving to a mutually agreeable position. Each side wants to move as little as possible. So it's a long old process. If you want to make it quicker, you can. Of course you can. You just agree to everything that the other side wants in their proposal. This is what we did with Japan. This is what we did with the EU. Those are the only genuinely new trade deals that we have arranged for our post-Brexit trading. All of the other ones were arranged by the EU. And both of the trade deals that we, in theory, arranged are on much worse terms than our pre-Brexit arrangements with both markets. Of course they are, because we wanted the deals quickly. The same will apply with the United States at some point, and the same is applying now with Australia. It is baffling that Truss is even possibly of the view that things are proceeding slowly. I'm not sure you even get to claim that things are proceeding slowly for at least 10 years. I think after 10 years, maybe you can say, well, we're not really nearly there yet, so maybe it's going slowly. You don't get to say it after a few months. What I also find baffling is, let's say she thinks it's going slowly. Why is she so upset about it? Let us say that she is ignorant enough to think that this is not how it's supposed to go. This is actually really slow. And nobody is telling her otherwise, obviously. Why on earth is it anything to get so upset about that uncomfortable chairs need to be employed? Australia is oceans away. A free trade agreement is not going to do very much for our trade with them at all, and vice versa. You know, you can bet your arse Australia aren't getting into a tizzy about this. Even Boris Johnson couldn't give us much of a reason to get excited about an Australian trade deal. You know, you may have seen him waving around the packet of Tim Tams last year. I wish I could say it was a photoshopped meme. It wasn't. It was real. The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland actually used a televised government briefing to wave a packet of Australian snacks around as a great reason to be excited about our post-Brexit trading relationships with Australia. Now, I gather we can already get Tim Tams in the country. I couldn't see any myself when I went shopping, but we do have these. We have penguins. And penguins come with a joke. Okay? Look. Who is a penguin's favourite family member? Antarctica. Huh? There's none of that on Tim Tams. You know, I am reliably informed they don't come with a joke at all. Absolute amateurs. So to this day, I still don't know what Boris Johnson was using them for. They don't have jokes on them, so are hardly worth buying in the first place. And for those who aren't bothered about their snacks amusing them in these dark times, you can already buy them in the country. And as amusing as this must be for the parts of the world that aren't the UK or Australia right now, this is desperately depressing. Their failure to understand the realities of international negotiations means that we can be 100% certain that they are not being advised by people who know what they are doing. This can only mean one of two consequences with every single country we talk to. And I don't just mean for trade deals, but for trade deals, it will mean, one, we agree to all of their demands in order to get that deal quickly, as has happened with our only two trade agreements so far. This, of course, means that we will provide better access to our markets for them in return for a negligible increase in our own access. And if we get, let's say we get a more sensible government in the future, you know, they'll be lumbered with this albatross of a deal. Because what happens if they go, right, this is ridiculous, we're going to try and renegotiate this? That's not likely to get very far, is it? You know, when the other side have already got a deal that's way more advantageous to them than they would get from a competent government, a government with any brains, we'll be stuck with it. They'll be saying, no, okay, you want to renegotiate? No problem, yeah. And they'll just refuse to agree to everything, string it out for 20 years, 30 years, forever, while the old trade deal remains better, which it always will. The second alternative is that, well, the second option, is that we tread the long path, but because we're wasting time right now, while our ministers come to accept reality, the overall process takes much longer, and already takes a long time, because right now no progress is being made, while they live in their fantasy Brexit world of trade deals that can be arranged in an afternoon over a cup of tea. Because what's happened with Australia is that our government has now insulted Australia's government. Not only by threatening use of the uncomfortable chair, but by accusing their trade minister of being inexperienced and needing to prove to Truss that he's capable of playing at her level. Now that would be insulting under any circumstances. But Tayan apparently has got decades of experience of international trade negotiations. What has Truss got? She's got her copy-pasted deal, so we know she knows how to use a photocopier. Right, well done, okay. And then she gave in to all the demands for Japan. The EU deal's nothing to do with her. But, you know, she agreed to everything Japan wanted to get the Japanese trade deal. That is her experience. A few months of using a photocopier and saying, yeah, whatever you want, mate. That's it. And all last year. Again, someone who's got decades of experience, and yet he's got to prove to her that he's at her level. And this is how we're going to behave with everyone, isn't it? This isn't isolated to Australia. It's how we're going to be with the United States, how we'll continue to be with the EU, how we'll conduct ourselves on the world stage for the foreseeable future. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Until then, hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please click the Patreon link for details. And I'm going to go and eat this penguin now.